Hey, it's Mark Bergin from the Browns Nation Station. The listeners of the Browns Nation Station can show their Browns Nation pride by going to brownsnationswag.com. The site has all the latest and best fan gear to represent your team. Again, that's brownsnationswag.com. And if you're watching the Browns Nation Station on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show so you never miss another episode. All right, cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Browns Nation Station. I'm your host, Mark Bergin, joined tonight by fellow brownsnation.com writer Pat Opperman and the guys from Clapback Sports. We have the Maj and Tino Rodriguez. We're recording this after the Sunday night football matchup between the Browns and the Giants. The Browns come out victorious 20-6. And guys, thanks for joining in tonight. I'm going to start with Pat, though. I just want your first reactions from tonight's game. Pat, I'll start with you.
My first reaction was boredom. This was a boring game. And for the Giants, that was bad. If the Giants were going to win, they couldn't be boring. They had to do something exceptional. And they tried it with that field goal monstrosity early. But after that, it was just vanilla. And their offense had to do something crazy. For the Browns, boring was beautiful. When's the last time the Browns had a boring victory that a ho-hum, run-of-the-mill, yeah, we just went out there and kicked some butt and won a game. I mean, it was just, we did our thing and the game was almost never in doubt, to be honest with you. And for Cleveland fans, I think that was quite a delightful change in normalcy.
Maj and Tino, why don't you two hop in here? This game had a little bit of everything. You had Freddie Kitchens calling plays. You had a fake punt pass in the red zone. We saw a doink from the Browns kicker, Cody Parkey. But what stuck out to you in this one?
All right. I'm going to start this with what Joe Judge is probably going to start his press conference with, and it's all the credit to Cleveland. I think Cleveland had an exceptional game today. I think they came out and executed the game plan exceptionally. My question is, when did the Giants get good enough to not kick field goals? We have an automatic field goal kicker. I get it. I understand the urgency for a fake field goal. We've been calling for it on Clapback for weeks. We wanted this to happen weeks ago. Seattle, there were other opportunities for this. I don't think this was the game for it. It obviously did not work out, and I think it was all downhill from that. And I don't know what's going on with the guys right now. Freddie Kitchens, Jason Garrett, this offense is in a daze. I don't have much else other than that.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Pat. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. We're on to Baltimore. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Look, I mean, honestly, it was kind of the game that we expected. The Giants were missing their top shutdown corner in James Bradberry, and they got exploited all day. I mean, the tight ends ate against this New York Giants defense because of his own defense, because we couldn't put Bradberry on Jarvis Landry to shut him down. And Jarvis Landry had a phenomenal game as well. I mean, there was just nothing that the Giants could scheme up well enough to cover up our inefficiencies. We were missing James Bradberry on the defensive side. We were missing Darnay Holmes on the defensive side as well. And it really showed. The Giants didn't get much pressure. Baker had all the time in the pocket. The Giants played well against the Browns run game, which I expected a little more from. They had a few runs in which they broke out, but still overall, I like the way that the defense played. They only gave up 20 points to this offense that put up 40+ against the Baltimore Ravens the week before. As far as the field goal attempt, I'm okay with the aggressiveness. The Giants have to do that. You're missing your starting quarterback. You're starting Colt McCoy in a game in which we're honestly, aside from Giants fans, not many of us probably expected us to win this. But the execution, the play call was horrible. I mean, if you're going to go for it, go for it. Why are you putting it in your punter's hands and throwing it to your center, Nick Gates? I mean, it was just an atrocious call. The 4th and 2, the Giants should have made that. It looked like Gallman got a little close on it, but I'm not going to question Joe Judge and the aggressiveness that we saw out of him this game.
And so the sentiment I'm getting from you, Maj, is that is a Joe Judge call, not a Freddie Kitchens call, because Kitchens calling the plays tonight, filling in for Jason Garrett, who has COVID-19. the Giants seem to love their threes, at least in the first half. They had 3 trips to the red zone on 3 drives, and they come away with 3 points. And so the aggressive nature of this Giants offense and trying to go for it. At the same time, are we talking about a different game if you're able to get points on each of those drives? And I really think at that point, after the third stop, it's just like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. You've got to have a play that you can execute in that situation. And it's easy to look when hindsight's 2020 in the aftermath of the game, but kind of going back to what Pat said off the top, this was a very boring game in the second half, but I can't help but think, what the outcome could have been if the Giants execute on any of those 4th down conversions.
Well, for me, I kind of said that, and again, you brought up the point about it being in hindsight. It's true. When the Giants are driving in that 4th quarter and they kick the field goal, had we gone for the field goal on those 2 attempts, the fake field goal on the 4th and 2 with the Gallman run, it's a 1-score game. You're down by 8 points.
Absolutely.
So I get people saying you can't leave points on the board, especially when this offense is as anemic as it is. But at the same time, you're playing against the Cleveland Browns. Let's face it, the Cleveland Browns ain't the joke of yesterday. This is a legitimate offense with Kevin Stefanski. It looks like Baker's finally getting it right in his 3rd year. And, what kind of Giants fans would we be if we didn't mention Odell? But, this offense looks like a different offense without Odell Beckham in it. And
I also want to show love to Kevin Stefanski, just off that. I think, we hail Patrick Graham for as great of a DC as he's been all season, and I think he has been. But I think tonight you saw Kevin Stefanski, man, is really on his P's and Q's with this offense. He had specific play calls. I mean, getting Jarvis the ball the way he does is something has to be attributed to that. Look, getting your playmakers the ball in the manner that Cleveland has done, especially with Jarvis, whether he's throwing the ball, catching reverses, going through in the flat on like an RPO, it's really impressive to see. And they definitely have something going on offense, and large in part for their head coach.
I think even when we had Odell, to me, Jarvis Landry was always the go-to guy. Odell, you counted on for a big play once in a while, which unfortunately him and Mayfield didn't really ever connect too many times. But when you needed that 5 yards on 3rd down or 11 yards on 3rd down, you kind of just knew Landry was going to be the guy. Even if it wasn't open, he was going to catch whatever you threw at him. And I think he's continued that this year, in the last few weeks, especially since he's a little healthier since the bye. He's really showing what he can do. We talk all about the running offense and Chubb and Hunt, and nobody can stop us. Well, the Giants did a pretty good job of stopping the run today. I mean, Ernest Johnson had the longest run of the day, and Chubb had only 50 yards, Hunt 21 yards. I mean, that's like, a quarter, usually. And they did a great job. But Landry went out there and caught 7 passes and some key passes and kept drives going. That touchdown, I mean, Mayfield probably had the quietest 300-yard game we've seen in a while. I mean, that was just really nothing that stood out. There was no 75-yard bomb to Higgins and nothing that, make you say, oh, remember that play. That one pass to Landry in the back of the end zone. I mean, last year, I would have argued that he was aiming for Njoku and Landry bailed him out. But I think this time he was actually aiming for Landry and got it out there. Pretty nicely placed pass. So, yeah.
Pat, you're in my mind in the sense that in Maj and Tino, I know we've talked about this many moons ago on previous podcasts. Jarvis Landry is the Batman of this receiving corps. Don't get it twisted. I know OBJ makes headlines. He's great in the open field, but Jarvis Landry is the man when he's healthy. And remember, he cracked a rib earlier this season. So some of his production earlier in the year that was a bit down, he's playing hurt. And so he's finally starting to get healthier and healthier. And you've seen that production increase over the last several weeks. Another guy I like to see making plays for the Browns is Hollywood Higgins. 4 receptions tonight, 76 yards on 5 targets. And this was a guy who was in Freddie Kitchens' doghouse a season ago when Kitchens was the head coach of the Browns. They go 6-10, and he's out of there. And we can make all the Freddie Kitchens jokes that we want to, but some guys are just not cut out to be head coaches. He could be a fine position coach. He could be a fine coordinator.
you don't have to go very far. Just look at the Giants offense today if you want Freddie Kitchens joke.
There you go. There you go. 6 points. And, going back to Tino's point, credit Kevin Stefanski in making the adjustments and defensive coordinator Joe Woods, because this was a Browns defense a week ago that absolutely got thrashed by the Baltimore Ravens. And it was one of those things where we were talking last weekend on the podcast of, if this is the Browns defense that's going to show up in the playoffs, once this team gets into the postseason, you're going to be one and done. And they shored things up, only allowing 6 points tonight to the Giants.
Well, I just want to bring up one point about that too, because the two plays that I saw right off the bat, I know I joked about Freddie Kitchens just to throw this out there, but this Giants offense certainly opened up their passing plays a little more than they had in previous games, which is something that Giants fans were excited to see. They wanted to see them take more deep attempts. My question is, does that pass to Darius Slayton on the left side of the sideline, is that a touchdown with Daniel Jones? Because that ball was poorly placed, right? So if Daniel Jones is in this game, I'm sure that's a touchdown. Daniel Jones is a great deep ball passer. And the other one to Evan Ingram in the end zone as well. That was another poorly placed ball by Colt McCoy. So we know that Danny's hurting right now, though, too. But to your point about this Cleveland Browns defense, maybe it might be a whole different ball game with Daniel Jones in there. So
I want to just note the Evan Ingram play real quick. I want to jump on Evan Ingram more than anybody in the game. Any Giants fan, no one is on Evan Ingram more. But that play got wrecked, not even on the pass, by Karl Joseph. I thought Karl Joseph today was just a game wrecker. I was very surprised by how he played. I mean, I think he had like 10 tackles, 2 pass breakups, but he was everywhere on the field. He was literally everywhere. He was in the hip pocket of all of our receivers. I think he followed Slayton, Shep. He was on everyone. And I want to blame Ingram and I want to blame Colt, but I honestly can't on that play. I think Karl Joseph was playing out of his mind today, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see that, because I had followed him for a while. And I don't know, I don't follow the Browns closely enough, but I don't know if this is his best game yet in Cleveland.
He's really stepped up since when Ward went out, when we lost Ward for a couple of games. That's when I first really noticed Joseph really throwing himself all over the field. That one pass to Ingram that he broke up, I really think that if McCoy threw it a second earlier or just a little bit farther, it was a touchdown. But yeah, the fact that Joseph got there was still a pretty good play. And there was a couple of runs. I mean, they were all saying about how they stacked up the goal line run, but on the replay, Collinsworth mentioned, oh yeah, look at that. That was Joseph that actually had him by the legs behind the line. And I mean, he was everywhere against the run, against the pass. Today, he was able to go back to the slot because, Ward was back, and he pretty much eliminated Golden Tate. He was just taken out of the game. And I think that's, just something that's the Joseph we expected, when we signed him, and we really didn't see it until Ward went down and he stepped this game up a bit.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that this was Denzel Ward's first game back. He missed the last few with injury. And so that's a huge addition to this Browns defense. And I would argue probably the Browns' second best defensive player behind Myles Garrett. Speaking of Myles Garrett, I don't think he's been the same guy since getting COVID-19. They mentioned he's still getting breathing treatments, but I know his stats and his production are still at a really high level because he was playing at is a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year behind Aaron Donald of the Rams and TJ Watt for the Steelers. But he just doesn't quite look like the same game wrecker that we're accustomed to seeing from Myles Garrett, a guy where it's like you match him up against an offensive tackle one-on-one and it's good luck. But hopefully he can get right in the final 2 weeks of the season, as the Browns are likely to make the playoffs now. They're at about a 90% chance, and they'll probably have some sort of scenario next week in their matchup against the Jets to where if they win, they make the playoffs for the first time since the 2002 season. We're talking a 17-year playoff drought, the second longest playoff drought in all of North American professional sports. The only team with the longer playoff drought is in Major League Baseball with the Seattle Mariners. So tonight's win for the Browns is huge in the sense that they put themselves in tremendous position in the final 2 weeks of the season to make the playoffs, and something that people in the Cleveland area haven't seen, not just years, almost 2 decades worth, 17 years worth. And so that's the reason why tonight's big is so big for the Browns.
Well, I think just two other points to Browns Nation to also point out is that the Browns also lost Sheldon Richardson this game. Yep. And Chris Hubbard as well. Two big injuries. Sheldon Richardson, big on that defensive front, and Hubbard was filling in for Teller as is. So
with Hubbard as well, he serves as the team's swing tackle too. So if Jedrick Wills, the left tackle, rookie out of Alabama, goes down, or the right tackle, Jack Conklin, the team's big free agent acquisition, guy who helped pave the way for Derrick Henry's rushing title a season ago, Hubbard serves as the backup to both of those players too. And so if his injury is significant, which you hope that it's not from a Browns standpoint, his versatility on the offensive line is a tremendous asset. Obviously, the Browns without Wyatt Teller, one of the best guards in the NFL this season with the way that he's played. He's consistently ranked among PFF's top graded guards week in and week out. He did not play tonight. And so from the Browns standpoint, you hope that you can get those guys back. I did think that the rookie Nick Harris filled in well once Hubbard went down, and the Browns didn't seem to miss Hubbard too much in the sense that I thought Harris did a nice job on the line.
I thought that was the story of the game. When Hubbard went down, I really thought the Giants would take advantage and start blitzing and really going after Baker. But yeah, that one sack, and other than that, maybe a couple of pressures, if that. And that's been consistent with Cleveland the last few weeks. It's been, he's been Maker's been at a 10 to 15% pressure rate, and it's hard not to be a good quarterback when you're not being pressured, And
absolutely,
and I think that's part of urgency and confidence here. Mayfield. My biggest knock on Mayfield, my biggest concern on Mayfield has always been his mental makeup. That I thought he would be like. The Giants guys can understand this, be like a Brady where, hey, he's great. Yeah, well, let's hit him a few times and see what happens. And, once you start getting him questioning coverages, and I thought the Giants defense would try to confuse him a little more. Or maybe they did try and it didn't work, but he looked great tonight. And, like I said, that was a pretty quiet 300 yards that he threw for. He looked confident. I think Collinsworth mentioned during the game about the bounce, the Baker bounce. When he starts bouncing around back there, he's feeling it, and there's no stopping him. And he just made it look easy. Tonight. And despite the offensive line, so they held up really well against the rush.
From the Browns standpoint, if they do not pick up Mayfield's fifth-year option on his rookie deal, I would be shocked. I think you pick up that fifth-year option for the 2022 season and then get an even larger sample size if you want to commit to that long-term contract, because there is going to be a lot of quarterback movement. There are a lot of guys projected to go in the first round. You're going to have a lot of QB saturation come this offseason. The key is you don't want to overpay for the guy who's going to underproduce. But I do think that the Browns have found something in Baker Mayfield. I go back to this stat all the time with the problems that the Browns have had with the quarterback position. Mayfield, when he started 16 games during the 2019 season, a Browns quarterback hadn't done that since Tim Couch. And so you talk about stability with ownership, your general manager, your head coach, and your quarterback. And the Browns are starting to get that with Baker Mayfield. Fellas, I do have to get this off my chest, and I'd be remiss if I don't mention this. Cody Parkey, the last 2 weeks, and maybe this is just because I grew up as a Bears fan, and this is something that I watch each week. He missed the 48-yard extra point after Jarvis Landry was called for a taunting penalty, doinks it off the field goal post. And this comes after last week. He missed something. It was like a 38-39 yarder and also missed an extra point last week. But I have fear that if the Browns go into a playoff game and Cody Parkey is lined up for a huge field goal or extra point, I don't have much confidence in him. And that's not saying much going into the last quarter of the season, but I don't want to panic, and I don't know what your alternative would be. You can't just get a guy off the street this late in the season. But Cody Parkey, he's been pretty reliable up until these last 2 weeks, and all of a sudden he's missed a few field goals the last 2 weeks. And I'm sitting here, and it's like I've seen this story before.
Well, First of all, I just want to respond to Pat because Pat keeps throwing around 300 passing yards. Okay, it was 297, Pat. It was 297.
Sorry.
I was going to comment on that too. I'm glad you
So
said something.
let's relax with the 300. No, but and I think Browns Nation should be upset with you, Mark, because you are from the Chicago area, so you brought the luck of Cody Parkey with you over to Cleveland. So I suggest everybody write in and just bombard Mark with that. But it's tough because the Giants went through it last year with Aldrick Rosas after the year before he had a Pro Bowl season. You got to be able to hit those. Right. And I mean, you couldn't have probably signed the worst kicker. I mean, if you're looking for clutch performances, and he did well when he was with the Eagles. So, I mean, I don't really know what happened to him all that much, but he just lost his confidence. And like that ball has a magnet for the goalpost.
Well, he hit the upright 4 times in one game at one point in the 2018 season. So everyone points out the double doink in the playoff game against Philly in 2018. That was only one game. He was a 76% field goal kicker that year. This year, going into this game, he was at about 85%. He's been actually pretty reliable for Cleveland this season. But, it's, again, I've seen this before, and maybe I'm panicking, but I've seen this before with Cody Parkey.
I'm just hoping it's just a temporary slump and he's getting it out of his system now. That over the last couple of weeks, he'll just figure it out and do whatever he has to do to correct himself. He was going to have 2 bad games, better now than in the playoffs, that's for sure, But I don't think they're going to make a change. I don't think he's that bad that they're going to make a change or anything. But I'd feel more confident or happier if every time he went to kick, I wasn't having palpitations over whether he was going to make it or not. It's definitely not the most clutch guy in the last couple of weeks, that's for sure.
If the Browns make the playoffs and it comes down to 2 points with 3 seconds left on the clock, I'm going to come back to you for this, Pat.
All right.
And really, it depends on how long the field goal is, because if it's inside 45, okay. But if it's like 40, 45 yards, it's like I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen, because for once the Browns have a competent team. This is the first time they've had a 10-win season since 2007. So it's been a long time since Cleveland's even had a winner, let alone a team projected, in a good position to make the playoffs at this point. Fellas, as we start to wrap up here on the Browns Nation Station, the Browns will have the Jets in week 16 on the road, and the Giants take on the Ravens on the road in week 16. Giants still alive in the NFC East. And I think, as crazy as this season's been, I know that if you look at the odds, the Giants really needed this one tonight if they wanted to have a good chance of making the playoffs, and they'll need some help at this point. But just kind of, what are your thoughts moving forward for both of these teams moving forward?
So there was nothing gained or lost this week. Washington lost. We're in the same exact position 1 week later. Almost unfortunately for Giant fans, we got to drag through it. Hope we beat the Ravens somehow. Probably unlikely, but hey, buckle up. We got to hope and pray. And look, fact of the matter is Washington has like a 75% chance, but Dwayne Haskins seems to be their quarterback for the foreseeable future, which is something I'm not willing to bet on. So with that said, don't even get me started on the fact that Dallas is creeping up. I mean, that's how bad the NFC East is. Dallas is creeping up the back door. They are not at 0%. The Giants are like 15. I watched Steve Kornacki go on his thing today on NBC. I'm looking at all the odds. Look, Washington has the highest, but with Dwayne Haskins at quarterback, I can't say they're going to guarantee win these next 2 games. So anything can happen in the East. I'm hopeful for the Giants, but God, our offense, oh, buddy. Oh my God. Listen to Clapback Sports this week. I recommend you listen to Clapback Sports this week. Maj, let them know. Where are you at? I have no idea where Maj is at on this.
Well, look, I've been on the 9-7 train since that 4-game win streak. So but at this point, I tried to hop off somewhere and the train ran me over. So that's where I am with it. So for the Giants to make it, I think Tino summed it up pretty well. But let's face it, this is going to be known as the COVID season, and the NFC East is going to produce a playoff team with the least amount of wins in NFL history. I mean, I don't think anybody's hitting the 7-win mark at this point. I mean, I don't know. Merry 2020, people. So, I don't know. For me, coming into the season for the New York Giants, I guess I'll kind of sum it up with this. We mentioned on Clapback Sports, our podcast, it was never really about the wins for us, right? That 4-game win streak and then the win versus Seattle, let's face it, was fool's gold. It was about progression. We wanted to see how this coaching staff did, new coaching staff. We wanted to see how well the offensive line gelled together. And at the beginning of the season, I predicted that the Giants would have a top 15 defense because I like Patrick Graham's philosophy. I think we filled that quota. So I'm happy with what I've seen this season as far as the progression goes. I think the Giants are probably better off if they don't make it, get the higher draft pick, get the better collateral, look at it that way. If we get into the playoffs, hey, anything can happen. The Giants win and defeat an 18-0 Patriots team as a wild card. So we know that from history. It's week by week, man. But Mark, you did mention the Jets. Watch out for them pesky Jets, Mark, okay? Because today they beat the Los Angeles Rams 23-20. And in Jets fashion, they possibly took themselves out of the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes.
Not possibly. They did. They did take themselves.
Well, there's still the rest of the season to play yet. So as of right now, Tino, yes.
They're gonna
hey,
they're gonna win again. They're gonna win again.
What happens if Trevor Lawrence refuses to play for the Jaguars? I'll add another wrinkle to that. This has been a whole storyline manufactured of will he play for the Jets or not? Are we certain he's going to play for the Jaguars? I don't know. But Pat, your final thoughts before signing off here. Hop in here.
I think the best thing that happened to the Browns today was that the Jets won this week. And they'll have film this week of the Jets actually playing a very good game. They looked pretty good today. And they beat a pretty good team. And if there was any chance of a trap coming up in week 16, I think that helped us avert it. So I think that was a pretty good deal. I think, it was huge that we won today. I think that the 4-way tie scenario for the Browns, we're out. Okay, we have to have at least at the most a 3-way tie if we're going to be in the playoffs. It'll be a very Browns thing to have 10 wins and not make the playoffs. But I think the path is much easier. I fully expect them to destroy the Jets next week and come out swinging and lock it up in week 16 and then have some fun with Pittsburgh after that.
Yeah, Maj and Tino, I was hoping we would get the storyline of the Giants playing the Buccaneers, Giants against Brady yet again, just because you had his number in the playoffs. And that is a storyline that I want to see just because we get your full obnoxiousness. This is something where it's just like you have the bravado, you have the swagger, you've done it before and you can do it again. And so that's what I'm hoping for as a football fan.
I'll tell you, the Giants' biggest nightmare right now coming up is with the schedule the way it is. If Washington does lose a game or two, it's possible the Giants and Dallas are playing for the NFC East in Week 17. And
absolutely,
great. So we'll see what happens with that.
Maj knows I've said this for a while. I have said this for a while, Maj. Because look, my thing is, I was at Dallas Giants Week 17 back in 2011 when they won, and it's just what the NFC East is meant to be. It's meant to be Giants, Dallas. Let's act like the Eagles and Washington don't exist. It would be better if they didn't. And look, it's mainly because the Eagles own the Giants and the Giants own the Cowboys. It's a long mess. There's a pecking order in the East, but ultimately, let's just act like the Eagles don't exist. I think that's something we could all get behind. Big loss today, boys. That was a big loss today to the Cardinals.
The NFC East, it's like the old Godfather 3 line where it's like, as soon as I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. And so we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. But guys, this is always so much fun. Maj and Tino, I want to give you guys a chance to plug your show, Clapback Sports. Where can the listeners find your podcast? Go ahead and plug your show here.
Okay, since Tino doesn't want to do it, I'll go ahead and do it. Yeah, you can definitely check us out at Clapback Sports. We could be found on Twitter and Instagram at clapback_sports. We put out an episode at least once a week, sometimes more, depending upon how we're feeling. sometimes our emotions are a little hurt, and it's good and cheap therapy for us. So we definitely check us out on Clapback Sports. You can check out Tino on Twitter at Tino Rodriguez, _ at the end. And you can check me out on Twitter at the Maj, MAJ_NFL.
Absolutely. And Pat, are you planning anything this upcoming week for brownsnation.com? I always enjoy reading your work there. Do you have anything you're working on for Browns Nation?
Nothing in particular. I'm just sitting back and enjoying it, sliding into Christmas with a playoff bound team for the first time in a long time. And keeping an eye on my Giants, too. I am a diehard New Jersey born and bred Giants fan on the side, even though the Browns are my adopted team. So maybe we'll get them both into the playoffs. That'll be a fine year to have.
Hey, we'll meet in the Super Bowl. We'll say that. But fellas, thanks so much for staying up late tonight. And we'll do this again soon. I'll go ahead and sign off here. For Pat Opperman and the guys from Clapback Sports, that's the Maj, and Tino Rodriguez, I'm Mark Bergin. Thank you for listening to the Browns Nation station. Please go leave us a 5-star review. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the show as well. I'll see you next week after the Browns and the Jets. Take care, and so long, everyone.